Now, the minister explains that the average cost of 1 gigabyte of data is now reduced from 1,000 naira, which was the cost earlier paid in January 2020, to 487 naira 18 kobo in the month of November. Now, he also states that the new internet data prices is a resolution from the government committee inaugurated to develop the Nigerian National Broadband Plan 2020 to 2025. Well, joining me now live in our Lagos studio, I have with me economist Michael Ilo. Good to have you on the breakfast show today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start first with the slash that we have with the cost of data, 50%. That's quite a sharp cut that we are seeing at this point in time, where we see other service sectors are recording increases. How does this come to you in terms of the impact on consumers?
Well, it's a good development, although I would not credit government alone with all the positives. But I would say the regulatory environment is better than average.
Okay.
You know, other sectors maybe do less. But we are also reaping the benefits of industry-wide, global-wide reduction in cost of data. So if the NCC is up to its task as they are now, I think we should still see a further decrease over the years. That doesn't mean that Nigerians are not paying too much for data, as it were, but it is a good thing in the right direction. Let's
play the devil's advocate now. There are some fears that with this reduction, we're also going to see some perceived, quote-unquote, sharp practices at the end of the day, because now you know how the telecommunication sector is and the services that are rendered. Some would say we might likely see that 1 gigabyte of data does not even last the ordinary period it ought to. I'm sure you've had certain experiences where your data connection had been cut short just because of some little inexplicable situations you have. Do you also share in that fear that 1 gigabyte will no longer serve 1 gigabyte the duration?
Well, I think when I read through the government documents, the price regime we are having now was projected for 2024-2025.
Exactly.
So if the operators feel that they can achieve that early, which they have, that's why I said the government cannot take 100%
the full credit.
The credit. So it's something they come to. But having said, okay, we can do it at this rate, it is up to the government now to ensure that they play by the rules.
So it is clear that the stakeholders' engagement has yielded some positive fruit.
It has yielded. So as far as I'm concerned, the government has to do its regulatory function by making sure that 1 gig is 1 gig.
Implementation,
you know, not that you don't give them to be judge and jury in their own cases. There should be measurements for all these things that, okay, if you say 1 gig, do random sampling. If there are issues, you subject whoever it is to some sanctions.
And then we also have to have portals for reporting of some of these sharp practices whenever noticed as well.
Then NCC has some jobs to do, you know, in terms of making sure that people keep to the rules of the game. You know, the average Nigerian spends more than 10% of his income on buying data and phone. It is not supposed to be. In other developed economies or even some other economies in Africa, the cost is about 1.4% that they spend of their average income. So we have to look into that. Otherwise, we find out that we are spending money wherever we are not supposed to spend money.
And looking at the situation we also have on ground, one of the biggest stories of last week was also the immediate suspension of SIM card registration and sales at this point in time. What we are looking at establishing the digital economy and also increasing penetration. Do you think we have a sound regulatory environment to support this? Is this really the best time to take such action in terms of audits?
Well, you want to do audit. That doesn't mean that you have to stop the sale and activation of SIMs. Actually, there have been some fraudulent practices over the times that they are trying to stop. But that doesn't mean you don't stop. There's a way you cut, okay, tell me the next numbers we are going to activate. Put some extra watchdogs on those ones. Allow them to do their normal businesses while you are doing your audit. You don't stop business transactions just because you want to do some audits and you have not put a time frame on the audit that you want to do. So I don't believe that the best way to go about it was to ask them to stop sale and activation of new SIMs. There are other ways to go about
those efforts.
And this is actually something you've done a year ago. So if it was successful, why are you now repeating it?
How intense do you think this impact would be on businesses? Because we have new businesses cropping up almost on a daily basis.
Well, I believe that people will always find a way to do whatever they need to do.
But you need designated lines for communication for your business.
We are not having that number of new businesses springing up every day. And for those who are doing it, now I can tell you from my own experience, you go to Computer Village, if you need a line that's already been registered, people are able to buy it off the rack. Maybe this is what NCC is trying to curtail, but they have to go better than that, because now people are depending more on data than on actual phone lines. You know, people have phone lines that they don't use. They only use for setting up WhatsApp and all the rest of it. So NCC has to understand holistically what it is that they can pinpoint, the things that they can do that will have a cumulative effect on other things.
And also sanitizing the environment at this point in time now, sharing of personal data, especially within the telecom industry. I'm sure you have received some messages from companies you don't even align yourself with, or you've never had an exchange of your details with them, but these also come through. At a time where we are talking about deeper penetration in terms of the telecommunication sector, do you think these issues of personal information must be treated a little differently than we are seeing now, because the excuses are just much?
The buck stops at the feet of NCC. It's part of the things they are supposed to do. The focus should not just be on reducing cost of data. It should be on fair practices. Although most times, you know, the devil is always in the details. But you don't give my data to third parties.
Just like last week, I was called by a bank scammer who was asking for my ATM
Sometimes
details.
you do a transaction, and at the end of the day, somebody calls you. We should know that if there was no communication between whichever party you did the transaction with, those other people
have been exposed.
So NCC should be hard on those people who go out of whatever limits of ethics or ethical conduct should be, and they sanction them so that other people will take a cue from it.
What's also your forecast in terms of our digital economic growth that we're likely going to see in Nigeria?
Well,
the telecom services is doing much better.
Nigeria is growing. There's no force that can stop that. We are in terms of digital mobility, we are the #1 in the world, because like 87% of Nigerians access the internet with their mobile devices. It's because you don't have a reliable broadband. It's because there are more or less no other way to do it. You know, it's not because that is what we ordinarily want to do. But we are here, and we are making progress. But at the end of the day, it's not about having access to internet. It's about having adequate access. You know, because if you limit yourself to 1 gig in 2 weeks, for instance, there's a limit to what you can access. You know, where you're supposed to watch videos, maybe to learn 1 or 2 things, you are restricted to maybe reading about it. There are differences. So if government is interested in deepening data penetration, there's need for engagement, there's need for investment, there's need for inclusivity, you know, bringing other people on board and letting them do the needful.
And what sort of policy drive do you also expect in terms of the reception of 5G connectivity? That has also come with a whole lot of banter.
5G is something that is good,
Not optimistic.
you know, but you know, it's good for everybody. I'm always all about innovation too. So at the end of the day, while you are looking for 5G, make sure that the 4G has really penetrated, because they'll be telling you that people are using, Nigerians, 200 million, 150 million people are using mobile devices. Many of these people are concentrated in the urban centers. The average person in Lagos maybe has 2 or 3 lines. So it doesn't mean that 200 million phone lines mean 200 million Nigerians, no.
And also tackling the fears of data security that comes with 5G?
Data security, we are having that challenge already, you know, with SIM card frauds and the rest of it. If your phone is stolen now, you don't block your bank accounts, you'll be surprised that money will be depleted from your account using this SMS, whatever that people are doing now. So those are the issues. NCC should sit down with the telcos, with the regulators, with other people that are tangential within that value chain. How do we be on the side of the consumer at the end of the day? Because most times people are left on their own when their money is removed from their account. So government has a stake in it to make sure that there is enough confidence being espoused for people in that space.
Thank you very much for being on the show today, Michael Lloyd. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully we'll take all of these cues to the quarters that matter, and that we have improved data penetration and also a better telecommunications sector in general.
Yeah, thank you for having me.